Welcome back. My name is Chris Lee. This is episode 3 of a recent webinar series I did. And today we're talking all about tribe. Chris, what are you talking about? What do you mean by tribe? I'm talking about the inner circle that has the most significant impact on the trajectory of your life. The people closest to you are going to greatly define how your life ends up. Dan Pena has a great quote: "Show me your friends and I'll show you your future." I totally agree with that. So in this webinar, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my tribe, why I think it's important to develop an inner circle, and some key questions you can ask to filter out and vet the appropriate people to allow into your inner circle. Now, I'm not saying that you should be mean or nasty to people, but rather be selective with who you let into your tribe, because the people that you surround yourself with have a greater impact on the trajectory of your life than you may think. We'll see you in there.
Okay, so last night I got to hang out with my buddy Paul. He's one of my best friends. He was on my very first team when I got to group, and he is one of the funniest guys I know, and the exact opposite of me. Not saying I'm not hilarious because my sense of humor is on point, but he is an extrovert and I'm a bit of an introvert, and so we jive very well together because he does all the talking and I do all of the listening. So he and I go way back, and I love that guy to pieces. Well, he and his family live here locally, and he and his wife actually share a birthday, which is this coming week. And so last night we were doing a bit of a birthday celebration at their house. They had them, obviously, their kids, another couple with all of their kids. I showed up, and the intent behind it was everybody was going to order food, and it was all going to be there. And then we just kind of like buffet style pick and choose the food that we want. I wanted to take this a little bit to the next level because his wife is an extreme health nut. She eats very, very healthily and she works out very well. She's got her personal training cert. And so I wanted to poke a little bit of fun at her when I brought my food. So my first stop last night was I went to Domino's Pizza, and I walked in and went to the counter and said, "Excuse me, can you give me or sell me two empty pizza boxes?" And the 14-year-old at the counter was like, "I don't know what you're talking about, but I'll go ask an adult." And and so they eventually said, "You can just have them." So I was like, "Perfect." I then took those pizza boxes and went across the street to Taco Bell and ordered 6 burrito supremes and 3 Crunchwrap Supremes. And I put all of that inside of the pizza boxes. I then get to Paul's house and I walk in and he sees the pizza and he's like giggling because he's like, "Oh, sweet, you brought a pizza." And I open it up and it's just Taco Bell inside, and he just starts laughing his head off. And then I walk it into the kitchen where his wife was, and I hand it to her, and she was like, "Man, why is this pizza box so heavy?" And she set it on the counter and opened it up. And I thought for sure she was gonna, scold me a little bit for bringing just disgusting fast food. But she opened it up and saw that it was all tacos inside and just started cracking up. Fast forward, she's an amazing cook. She took all the leftover burritos and Crunchwrap Supremes, chopped them up, um, cracked some eggs into it, mixed it all together, and put some hot sauce in it, and then baked it and created this like burrito supreme breakfast for this morning. And it was out of this world. It was absolutely amazing. Somehow the eggs and the hot sauce tied all the bits of burrito together, and it was phenomenal. But that's my story from last night. There is a reason why I told it, but now I'm going to tell you another story. So some of you know Brad. He's a part of this group. He's one of my oldest friends. I've known him literally for like 25 years. And you're like, "But that means you were probably a teenager when you met him." Correct. Our first interaction together, and you'll have an opportunity to ask him about this tomorrow because he's our guest speaker for Mindset Monday. But our first interaction together, I was a youth member in the Church of the Nazarene in Virginia, and he was a youth pastor. And we took this trip to Canada to do some work, and there was like some services that we went to. But me being a rambunctious teenager, uh, my friends and I thought it would be funny if every restaurant we went to, we tactically acquired one piece of silverware from each of those restaurants and brought it home with us. I don't know why. It's the dumbest thing ever. but to us as 14 and 15-year olds, we thought it was funny. And uh, we eventually got caught and got in big trouble. And so because we had like this suitcase with a handful of silverware from various restaurants in Canada. And Brad was one of the leadership on that trip. And so he had to like hammer down on us about, stealing because that's bad, particularly when you're in another country. But Brad has been there forever. And I absolutely love that guy. He and I have been through ups and downs. And particularly those downs, we refer to those moments and those periods in time as battling our bears. And whenever we're going through a really rough spot, we refer to this like, hey man, I'm battling a bear right now. And we know to kind of like insulate and like, all right, what can I do for you? So that's kind of Paul and I's, or excuse me, Brad and I's relationship. Paul and I are very similar. We never really had that discussion, but we jive so well together that whenever there is this time of like, hey man, I haven't heard from you in a while. Are you okay? That's the kind of relationship that has now been established, which is very important. Okay. Today we're talking about tribe, and I had to talk about these two particular individuals because they are definitely part of my tribe. And and tribe is like a different kind of word. Um, it's like there is something more expected of you than just like a neighbor or a community member. There's this connection between tribe members that holds you to a higher standard. I used to refer to tribe as a community of consequence, and what I mean by that is there's this again expectation of standard within the relationship of the tribe members, right? One of my very first trips as a Green Beret was to Denmark, and it was one of the coolest trips ever. Uh, Particularly for me, I hadn't really been out of the U.S. ever, except for Canada. But when I got stationed in Germany, again, one of our first trips was to Denmark. Paul was on that trip. He and I really connected on that trip. But there was this moment where the team and we were preparing to train the Danish Home Guard, which is like their national guard. We had worked a little bit with their Jaegers, which is their like tier one unit. But this particular day, we were going to be interacting with the Home Guard, and we loved those guys. Those guys were just like eager to learn, and those are the kind of people we like to hang out with. But today's training or that day's training was to do CQB or clearing houses of potential threats. The team and I showed up a little bit early to kind of prepare, shake the dust off. Again, I was brand new, so I kind of knew what I was doing, but kind of was still learning, right? Well, before the home guard got there, I remember the team and I we put on our kit. We had our rifles; they were unloaded because this was just training, and we were going down this particular hallway in this building, this structure, and our SOP was like, if you see an open door or a threat, you call it out. And we were going down this hallway. I remember I was on the left hand side and I saw an open door, and so I called it open door left. And I went in, I dug my corner and started pieing around. And as I was pieing the rest of the room, a senior guy on the team grabbed me by my kit, put me up against the wall, and said, "Don't ever clear a room by yourself." Yeah, Roger that. Yeah, understood. Won't happen again. What I had failed to do is I started off okay. I saw the potential threat, I called it out, and then I attacked it. What I didn't do correctly was wait for my team to stack up on me to come into the room with me. And so I had essentially walked into a room. I cleared my corner, but there was still a threat behind me that I didn't even look at because I just assumed my team was there, but I hadn't waited for them. And so when he picked me up and put me against the wall and he said, "Don't clear a room by yourself." I later found out there's like specific reasons why he said that. He had some experiences in the past where people got hurt, right? And so he took this very seriously. But there's like a learning point here. And what I mean is if you view life as the building, as the structure, don't clear the rooms by yourself. Figure out who you can have in your team to stack up on you. So when you enter a room and there's a threat, they have your back, like literally have your back. Um, this is important because as I'm looking at this crew here, we're all high achievers. There's this tendency to want to do it alone. I don't know where that comes from. I don't know if it's maybe externally imposed upon us by society, like, well, you have to do it by yourself. You have to build this thing, whatever this thing, business, pursuing a master's, whatever. You have to do it by yourself. And I think that's a dumb way to do it. There's this old quote, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And that's one of the big reasons why I started creating this community, because the overwhelming response of a lot of my coaching clients was, Chris, where do I find people like me that want to make something of their life, that want to pursue excellence on a daily basis? And my response before I started the community was, I don't know. I don't know where to find them, because as you chase excellence and start climbing this pyramid of achievement and purpose, that those tiers get smaller and smaller, and the people that are like you are going to be fewer and fewer. And I realized that there was a need to get us all together in the same spot, which is what this is. This is the community, right? This is my attempt at creating teams so you don't have to enter rooms by yourself. Um, Entering a room by yourself has a couple of consequences. One, it might be totally safe. Maybe the room is totally empty and you got lucky and you're totally fine. But if the room has a threat in it and you didn't have anybody to watch your back, and then you get injured, you now become a liability for the mission and for the rest of your teammates, because now they have another problem to have to deal with, which is securing the building, but also dealing with you as an injured individual, right? Again, that's like real life scenario, but I think it can apply to, metaphorically how we approach life. Um, Wanting to do it by yourself, like I'm sure you've seen like the Rambo movies or the Jack Reacher series where he does it all by himself. But that's Hollywood. That isn't real. Like real life tactics is doing it as a team, as a singularly minded functioning team to take care of things together. We were trained whenever you enter a room, if you clear it and everything's taken care of, awesome. But if you bump up into something that you have to put hands on, maybe it's an unarmed individual, but you have to like secure them to make sure the house is safe. You have to call out for support, and that's really just letting people know, hey, I'm dealing with something. Um, when you're ready, please help me. And that's a good approach. It's like when you're on a team full of like Green Berets, we're all like the barrel-chested freedom fighters, like there's some ego involved with each of our personalities for sure. And and like in everyday life, maybe we're reluctant to ask for help. But in the room, it's like it's second nature. It's like support. I need support. Like there's no hesitation because it's ingrained in our mind that we are significantly stronger as a unit, as a team, than by ourselves. Um, there's a couple of questions that I ask in order to vet an individual to see if they're worthy of being in the inner circle, in the tribe, right? And and I encourage you guys to take notes on these particular questions because they're super simple, but I think they're profound enough that you can filter out the people that you want next to you really quick. Um, and the questions are these. Number one, is this individual genuinely excited when I achieve some kind of success? And the reason I ask that question is because sometimes we have people in our lives that smile at you and kind of nod and like it pat you on the back when you hit this awesome benchmark or milestone, but secretly in their mind they're jealous or they're mad that you've achieved that. Don't have those people in your inner circle. I'm not saying cut them off. I'm not saying be mean to them. I'm saying use this as a filter to determine who is in the inner circle versus regular community. So again, are they genuinely excited for you when you achieve some kind of success? Okay, the next question. Are these individuals or is this individual genuinely sad and are they grieving with you when you experience some kind of setback or loss? And it's kind of the inverse of the first question, but it's this one's important too. And it's there are people out there that cheer when you stumble or cheer when you have some kind of failure. Those are not the people you want in your inner circle. And to bring Paul up, Paul has a philosophy, and it is be kind to everybody and always say yes to opportunities. And so I'm not saying be mean to somebody that happens to be rude to you or is secretly cheering when you experience some kind of failure. You can be kind to them, but you don't have to let them into the inner circle, right? The third question that I use to filter and vet individuals, whether or not they're in my inner circle, is are they genuinely surprised when I don't measure up to the standard I've set? So this one's got maybe a little bit of nuance to it. What do I mean by that? It's as if all right, I have these goals, I have this plan and this action plan to achieve what I want to achieve, and then I start slacking, or I miss workouts, or I miss balancing my budget, or I miss connection with the people. And the people around me, if they say, yeah, I figured you wouldn't stick with that plan, or I figured you wouldn't follow through. If they're saying, yeah, I figured you would fail, those are not the people you want in your inner circle. Yeah, Mariana asked to repeat the last question. I absolutely will. So that third question to vet individuals is, are they genuinely surprised when you don't measure up to the standard you've set for yourself? If they expected you to fall short, or if they expected you to miss the mark, then they don't want what is best for you, and they are not there to support you when you're clearing the room of life. Okay. Guys like Brad and guys like Paul, when I'm slacking or when I mess up or when I'm on the struggle bus, they those are the kind of guys that insulate. And what I mean by that is that they rush in and they say, "Bro, are you okay? You are not acting in character. You are not living up to the standard you've set for yourself. What's going on? Is there some other underlying issue that hasn't been addressed? Is there anything I can do to help you? Do you need me to be there and just sit with you in quiet?" Both of those guys have offered that to me when I've been at low points. Um, those are the kind of guys those are the kind of individuals you want in your corner, because they are genuinely surprised when you don't measure up. Okay, so I'm going to offer a little bit of an exercise. I'm going to give you a minute or two. I want you to picture the kinds of people that I've kind of described here. You go through maybe a quick contact list in your brain of individuals that are around you, and then ask these questions of those individuals kind of in your mind right now. Do they meet the criteria to be allowed into the tribe, into the inner circle? If you have pen and paper, you can use initials. So if anybody ever reads it, they don't know who you're talking about. That's totally fine. I'm always thinking about security, but I'm going to give you a minute or two. Run through a list of 3 or 4 people and see if they meet the criteria I've outlined. All right. I'm not going to ask anybody to share. But my question is, of the people that you've kind of reviewed in your mind using this vetting criteria, how many like passed the test, or how many didn't measure up to this filtering process? If overwhelmingly the list of folks that you provided for yourself, checked each box, then you're doing something really well. You are naturally filtering out the people that you don't want in your life, and you're bringing close the people that you do, which is great. Keep it up. If, however, you've gone through the list of people in your head and you're struggling to find somebody that's meeting each mark or checking each box, why? Why are you allowing those kinds of people into your inner circle? Okay, so think on that for a little bit. I want to tell you another story. Um, there's something interesting that happens when you surround yourself with the right kind of people. Uh, I I don't like running, and I won't do it. I'll do cardio in all kinds of other ways. I'll play frisbee. I'll jump on the row machine. I'll do stationary bike. I'll sit in my sauna for an hour and a half, as long as I don't have to run. I know frisbee, you do a lot of running when you're playing ultimate frisbee, but that's way different. That's like sprinting, and it's really fun, and you're catching something that's flying through the air as opposed to just running. We had a joke on our team, on the free fall team, that running breeds cowardice, and so we just won't do it. Um, but okay, back to my story. So my one of my favorite trips with my first team was to Estonia. And before this trip took place, I didn't even know Estonia was a country. Uh, I apologize. I blame the public education system. But when we got to Estonia, it was phenomenal. We did amazing training with the Estonian Special Forces on a daily basis, and then on the weekends we just worked out all the time. The team was split up into 2 houses, and these 2 houses happened to be in practically on the beach, and they were just amazing. And and so they kind of turned into, I've never been part of a fraternity, but they kind of turned into frat houses. We had like the leadership house, which is like the captain, the team sergeant, a couple of the higher ranking dudes, and then we had like the lower enlisted scum in the other house, and that's the one I was in, and it was so much fun. When you'd walk into our kitchen, the kitchen counter was nothing but like protein and creatine and all kinds of other supplements. And whenever we woke up in the morning, we immediately put on like EDM music. So like first thing in the morning, we were like jamming out, firing ourselves up, slamming our protein shakes. And on slow days, we would hit the gym all together twice a day. We would often pile all into the same truck or van, drive to the gym, walk in as a crew. It almost felt like the movie Tombstone, where they're walking down to meet up at OK Corral. We would walk in, and we were like the biggest dudes there, which was so funny. But then we'd get there and scatter, go do our own we would go do our own workouts, and then we'd all reconvene back in the lobby, walk across the street, get 5 Big Macs at McDonald's a piece, and slam them because all we cared about was getting as huge as possible during this trip. All right, so Chris, why are you telling us this story of living in a frat house in Estonia? Because when you are constantly surrounded with the kind of people that you want to be like and want to be a part of, you start adopting the behaviors that it takes to be a part of that tribe. Um, One of those happens to be like going to the gym all the time. We just love doing it. Uh, Rest and recovery weren't really a thing. We just went to the gym because we loved doing it and we loved doing it together. And so even if you didn't feel like going to the gym, it was like, hey, it's gym time. Let's go. Yep, let's pile up. Hit the EDM music. Let's techno the whole way there and just crush it and then come back. But that's kind of it's kind of a silly example, but that's the kind of attitude and environment you want to be around. The more you're around people that are performing the way you want to, the more you want to do that too. Whether that's in the gym or studying for a higher degree, or getting your finances straight, or being a really great dad. Like the more people like that you are around, the more you want to do it too. Because on the teams, you never want to be the weakest link. You never want to be the guy that's dragging, and you don't want to be the slowest, you don't want to be the fattest, you don't want to be the dumbest. So you're constantly trying to improve yourself to keep up with the tribe. And there's a little bit of sense of rivalry, like, I maxed out on bench today. Oh yeah, well, I did 10 pounds heavier last week. And so you get a little irritated at each other, but like also like fired up at the same time. You're constantly pushing each other. Uh, there's a phrase in the Bible that talks about iron sharpening iron, and that's the kind of mentality that we want to adopt. It's like I want to get better because I want to be like the people around me, and then they want to get better because they want to be like the people around them, and it's this like upward spiral towards a better self, right? Because you want to be a better self for the team, right? I use the oxygen mask analogy constantly. This applies here. Uh, the best way to serve the people around you is to put your oxygen mask on first, and then help the people around you, right? So the more I can improve myself, the better I'm for my guys, for my team, for my tribe, for my family. And as they see that example, they want to improve themselves too. Not always, but often. We there are some folks that ride achievements and try to coast on those achievements forever. Um, and you could see it in groups. Sometimes you see guys that are overweight and have let themselves go even on an ODA, and it's like, what happened? And I think part of it is they achieved something and then they thought that was done. They were done. Whereas like in our lower enlisted house, it was like I have arrived, but I'm always trying to better self because I want to be better for my guys. Does that kind of make sense? Cool. Uh, Eric says, in reference to our frat house, it was probably super clean too. Admittedly, our house was cleaner than the leadership's house, so I'll leave it at that. But but again, we didn't eat great. It was protein shakes often. Anyway, okay, so now you're starting to kind of grasp my mentality around tribe and its importance and how it impacts self and then trickles down to everyone around you, right? And I talked a lot about going to the gym. That was the example I used. But there's another metric I want you to keep track of, or to at least keep in mind. And that is like, what do you all talk about when you're together? Uh, when I say together, ideally it's like in person, sitting around a campfire or sitting on your rocking chairs or being together in proximity physically. That's like first choice because there is something different about being next to an individual that you care a great deal about. Second best is I have a very close friend of mine. We met years ago on in an online men's group, trying to better ourselves to be better for our families, etc. And he and I connect still regularly, but we've never met in person. But if he was in trouble, he would, and he called me up, I would be there. Like I would figure out where he lived, and then I would fly there or drive there, because we've been able to establish the kind of relationship where we care so much about each other. We're that guy we can call at 3 in the morning and say, "Hey, I need to hide a body," or "Hey, man, I'm really struggling. Can you help me, or at least listen to me?" So although being in person is ideal, it's not always necessary, which I think we are discovering within this community right here. We're literally scattered all over the world, but we get to come together, and every time we get on these group calls, there's a little bit more that's like solidified in what we have in common, which I think is super cool. If you can't meet with somebody in person and encourage each other to go to the gym or whatever, and you only have the capability to talk and interact, maybe on a screen or whatever, I want you to be aware of what you talk about. I was stationed in Germany, and a fellow Green Beret needed to have some tests done at the hospital, which happened to be like 2 hours away. And I got tasked to drive him to the hospital, hang out, and then drive him home. So 2 hour ride there. Again, I'm the listener, and he happened to be another extrovert, and so he talked the whole time, and it was fun. He is a phenomenal soldier, phenomenal Green Beret. Everything he talked about was in the past. He was telling me high school stories, stuff he did in college, all the things that had happened before. And there's some value to that for sure. Sometimes it's great to like remember the good old days, and to like laugh about the silly things we did when we were 15, like stealing silverware in Canada. But if all you do is talk about the past, that's where I start to question, like, all right, where are we going? So I took him up to Launchstoel. He talked a great deal about all the things he's done, and he has lived a very interesting life. He did all of his tests and stuff, and then we drove back for another 2 hours, and it was a repeat of the same conversation. Different stories, but it was all past oriented. And and I like the guy a lot, but he doesn't qualify for inner circle material, because if all he wants to do is remember the good old days, uh, I want to be more forward thinking. I want folks in my circle that are asking me, dude, what are you doing this year? What adventure are you going on? What challenge have you put in front of yourself to tackle moving forward? I talk a lot about Travis in my book. He is that guy. Uh, he is constantly looking for the next thing. Like, hey Chris, what books are you planning to read this year? What How's business going? How are you planning to scale this year? What are you doing with the family this year? What are you doing moving forward? He and I constantly have questions and discussions about future things. And I think that's an important thing. And it's hard to miss sometimes. Sometimes it's like you get so wrapped up in talking about the past, or like telling old stories, and there's a time and place for that. But if that just becomes the pattern and you never talk about future, I I would argue either take the initiative and adjust that conversation, or if they refuse to adjust that conversation, uh, understand it is what it is. Like, those are the kind of people that you just want to tell stories to, and listen to about the past, and that's totally fine. But there's something different about somebody that wants to talk about forward movement and future thinking. Travis and I climbed Kilimanjaro back in 2018, I think. And I've told this story before. I think I even put it in the book, but it's a very non-technical climb. I think the oldest person that's done it was in their 90s, and the youngest I think was 7. It's not that hard. It's just walking, and then you got to like get used to the altitude. That's where you really will struggle if you don't acclimatize well. But I remember we get to base camp. So it had been like 3 days to get to base camp. Base camp, we chill for a while, and then we begin our hike to the summit at midnight. So by the time the sun is coming up, we're at the top. That's the intent. So we finally get to base camp. The tents are set up. Travis and I are sipping coffee, and from across the base camp, we hear somebody screaming. And the medic in me kind of perks up and is like, I wonder what's happening. Is that guy okay? And and as we looked at what was going on, the guy was just excited. He had summited that morning and had just made it back to base camp. And he had both fists over his head. He's like, I did it. I climbed Kilimanjaro. And this was unintentional, but Travis and I, like, as we were sipping our coffee, we were already thinking about the next mountain to climb, even though we hadn't finished this one yet. And there's a fine line there. That can be dangerous if you let it. But I think it's also a good practice to be in, to always be forward thinking and to always be like seeking out the new challenge. So there is no moment of stagnation and waiting. I say it could be dangerous because if you let it, it can lead to this tendency of never appreciating where you are currently and never being present. So there's a bit of a balance there you have to find is like enjoy the moment, enjoy the struggle you're on right now, but be excited and anticipate the next one and look out for the next one because oftentimes the next struggle is really just another opportunity that's being presented to you. Okay, I've talked a lot today about a lot of stuff. Um, I talked about, Paul and Brad and my first trip to Denmark and how you shouldn't clear a room by yourself. I talked about the three questions to vet your inner circle and then the importance behind surrounding yourself with the kinds of people that you want to be around. I'm now going to open it up to Q&A. So I'm going to give you a minute, let some of that soak in. Um, so if it's quiet, it's totally okay. But think of a question if you have one. I'd be happy to answer them. Um, but it's okay to sit and let that soak in and simmer for a minute if you'd like. Lee commented earlier, uh, be your best for those who depend on you. It's a great way to look at it. Um, the best way to serve the people around you that do need you is to be the best versions of yourselves. So keep that in mind as you're moving forward.
I was just going to say I appreciate the last 3 days seminar. A lot of good information. I definitely have to read through all my notes again just to, this is a good information on like stagnation, on philosophy, and on purpose. A lot of great information, a lot of great information on the three questions. So I don't have any questions now. I'm sure I'll have some questions coming up, but I just want to I'll take some time to read through my notes and put it in my journal. But it's definitely great information and definitely a good supplement if you have read your book and stuff.
Awesome, man. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. That's great.
Question.
Fire away.
Uh, do the other two guys that you talked about only drink black coffee as well? Like, do you find that like so? No, there's a point to the question. Like, do you find that the people in your tribe have very similar characteristics into what they enjoy as well, or do you find that they're more of an opposite, right?
Great question. And no, we're pretty opposite. Um, you guys are gonna think I'm nuts. Uh, Brad, as I mentioned before, is one of my closest friends. I don't remember what his birthday is. It kind of never comes up but once a year, and I always forget, and I need Facebook to remind me, right? But he is also the guy that I would kill or die for without hesitation. And No, I don't think he likes black coffee. I think he's mentioned that he thinks I'm a psycho because I drink black coffee, but that's totally fine. Um, he's also never served in the military. He was a youth pastor. I've mentored underneath him for a number of years. We worked at the same church for a while. He started coaching, and then he got me into coaching after the military. He tried to talk me out of joining the military a lot before I got it. When I told him, "Hey man, I think I'm going to go join the army," he's like, "You better not, dude." You know. So he and I think that's part of the reason we gel well together. A lot of our perspectives and thoughts are pretty opposite and different. Um, but because of that bounce, because we have the relationship we do, we're able to like call each other out or call each other forward when when we're messing up. Um, a quote a quote I use often that you've probably heard me say is real friends stab you in the face. Paul and Brad are that guy. They if I'm not measuring up, they will just approach me and say, "Dude, you are not measuring up." And I have to sit back and say, "Yeah, yeah, you might be right, man," because they've got a different perspective and they're viewing things from external source, but an external source that I trust with everything. You know what I mean? And so I think there is something to having some opposite personalities within your tribe if they meet the criteria, you know.
This really isn't a question, but just a personal experience. Last year, I was kind of going through some things going on in my life, stuff like that, and I was making headway, gaining. Like I finished my book and I published it, and I started to tell my friends about it. And this is kind of where your questions came in, Chris. I would kind of measure the excitement of my friends on my personal successes as
Okay.
I hit my goals and I would tell them about it. I would kind of like observe how they reacted to that. And at the end of last year, I cut a couple people out of my life, just kind of straight told them like, listen, we're not friends. Um, I've tried to be a friend to you, and your behavior to me said otherwise. Uh, you didn't celebrate my win, right? Like I celebrate your wins with you, but your my wins were never brought up. And using the kind of that matrix, I I just had to just kind of like let people go, people that I consider to be in my inner circle, but it was not reciprocal, the friendship, and
Yeah.
so they had to cut those ties.
Yeah. I've I've experienced similar things for sure. Uh, one of my best friends for a long time, I got to the point where I almost started getting nervous to share successes with him because he, he would either try to knock me down a peg when I would share those things, or I could tell by like the facial expressions that he wasn't super happy. You know what I mean? It'd be very quick, and then he'd put on a smile and be like, "Dude, that's awesome." Um, and which is hard because like if you really care about somebody and they're not stoked for you when you are doing the things that you want to pursue, that is tough. It's like heartbreaking almost, you know. So for him it's and there were some other things too for sure. I think largely it was just like a diverging of paths. Incidentally, he and I worked in the same hotel in the same position at the same time when I decided I was going to join the military. We both had the same amount of school loan debt. Our dads are carpenters. Like there's like interesting similarities between the two of us, and our paths diverged in that moment and never really reconnected. We'll get together and like hang out and talk story and remember the good old days for sure. But in that moment things started to part. And I got to a point where if I was feeling uncomfortable to share positive experiences or successes in my life, there was something wrong there, you know. And so for him in that particular instance, like it was less like an actual cutoff, like, hey man, I'm letting you go. And it's more just like I stopped giving energy to that particular relationship, and it drifted naturally. Does that kind of make sense? It wasn't like a hard cut. It was just like it naturally happened, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. Some people just drift away on their own. Some people just need to be told
Yeah.
that this is it. That's the end. I
Awesome.
do want to go back to one thing you said earlier, Chris, talking
Yeah, please.
about clearing rooms,
Yeah.
clearing rooms by yourself, things like that. When I was in country in 2007, I had an opportunity to clear a room where I was the only one in the stack who had a firearm. So I led the stack through a building. I had two guys behind me. One guy was out of commission, and the other guy behind him just left his weapon in the vehicle. Retarded. But yeah, fortunately there was nobody in the building but me and these two guys. But I had to clear the whole thing with a sidearm.
That's I won't lie, that's pretty terrifying just to think about. I'm glad I'm glad everything worked out. Any other questions or comments?
Mm, Maybe this, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Is working? Okay. But I think this might be more of comments and maybe asking for an advice. Is
Yeah.
first of all, I think today was the day I really contemplated me wanting to go back to the past. And
Yeah.
actually, I couldn't really grasp if actually past. I mean, maybe if I think I have to be really vulnerable right now because actually I had a very not so nice relationship with my parents, and since like I am having very bad like spine pain and I couldn't get any like medical care right now in Germany, so
Yeah.
I was actually planning to go back to Korea and stay with my parents again. And when I talked this about like my friends, they would all say stay here in Germany, don't go back. But at like in my mind, I'm keep kind of contemplating like, oh, what if this is like a new opportunity? I can maybe be back like with good relationship with my parents.
Yeah.
But if I think it's better, I maybe have to open up because I had experienced very prolonged violence. That's why I actually tried to kind of come to Germany and kind of have like distance relationship. But
Right.
at the same time, I'm kind of like I feel like I want to go back though, just
Yeah.
even just for a medical care, and I feel like am I taking advantage of my parents? Like there are many like maybe this might be better I talk with my psychotherapist, but at the same time, like I feel this actually is just the whole theme of what you told us today that I might really just want to go back to the past and not
Yeah.
really just figure out what I can do here with like other people here because there are people here. So did you also had like times like when you think like is this actually a past or like oh am I actually amending this like new better relationship or like in those situations like what did you actually do?
Yeah. You definitely don't toss me softballs. Like that's a great question.
Yes, it's a
Um,
very very hard.
um, hmm. I'm very limited in my knowledge of your situation, but this is kind of what I gathered and my thoughts on it. Uh, if there was violence back at home, I would be reluctant to return, even if things may have, virtually gotten better, via Zoom or FaceTime or something. Uh, because your safety is like paramount. Like it's a priority. So you choosing to stay safe, I think, is a good thing. And if that means separation from violence, I think that's the right answer. Uh, I'm I also am aware that people can change too. Sometimes people hit rock bottom, they realized all the mistakes they've made, and they have they want to restore a relationship that was maybe damaged or lost, right? And I think that's okay too. In your circumstance, I would I would just be cautious, like put your safety first, and then also maybe go through this exercise with yourself. And if if healthcare wasn't an issue and everything was going fine, maybe pretend you've got a very well paying job, healthcare is covered, schooling is going okay. Would you want to go back home? Or is this kind of desire to return home stemming from like this feeling of kind of chaos and crisis right now? You know what I mean? Um, and I think I would do that exercise. And if you wouldn't return home to amend the relationship if things were going great, uh, that might be. I'm I'm not a counselor, and so I may be way off here. Let me disclose that. But if things were going great and you would not go home to amend the relationship, I think that's kind of telling to maybe like this might be circumstantial. This might be due to the circumstances you're facing currently. There is this desire to return to the known, even if the known was less than great or dangerous even, because at least you know it, you can anticipate it and navigate it because you've done it before. Uh, I'm not entirely sure that's the best answer to return to that, just because things are chaotic now. So I don't know if that answered your question or if I was way
I
off.
think no, I think that was actually great thing that I should maybe think right now. Like I should rather visualize if I have like all these like really catastrophic for me conditions are met, would I
Right.
still take action and
Yeah.
go back to Korea and like try to be like have a better relationship with my parents? I think that's actually a very good question and answer for me.
Cool.
And I think it's actually I would stay here.
Yeah.
Maybe it does just abruptly pops up into my head. It's, I just stay here, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a good, it's good to listen to your instinct in that kind of first impression, which is kind of what you just revealed. Um, and that means you still have an opportunity to try to mend the relationship, but you can do it from a safe distance, right? And ensure that you are safe and not in any kind of danger while you do that, if that's something you want to do, you know?
That was a great answer. Thanks.
Cool. Awesome. All right. I think we got time for about one more if anybody's got something burning in their mind.
I have something as far as like creating a tribe.
Yeah.
Um, because I have the good fortune of having like really great long time friends, 25, 30-year plus relationships that are now virtual because we live all across the country or, like some of us here, we're in just different time zones. And so, we make that commitment to move away from text messages, like this isn't working out. This isn't a real relationship. We get fed up with that and we're like, all right, we're gonna leave each other audio messages, or we're going to use Marco Polo or something. So we want to figure out how to keep this alive, because a digital relationship is really difficult for
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
because as I'm fond of saying, I would happily throw my phone in the river in 2 seconds if I could manage my life, my modern life without it. But what I'm finding is that there's value in these spaces like we're sharing today. But what I'm really, really hungry for is having those in-person relationships.
Yeah.
And what I'm finding is, as an adult, and having the family obligations I have, and, I'm in graduate school and balancing life, right? Doing life. But I'm really, really wanting these in-person relationships, friendships.
Right.
And what I know coming like through life is, I know that there's an investment. And I think, who was it that used the word reciprocal, right? Like, that reciprocation is like fundamental for me. And also like making time. Like, you have
Right.
to make time for people to be in each other's lives. So I think, like, at this point, I'm wondering, I don't really know what my question is, Chris, but it's like, you know, it's just a challenge, I would say, because I really, really want that. And yet or I'll have it in person, but it's like disparate. It's like this one person over here that I'm doing like this thing with, like I'll go have coffee, or I'll go on a walk with this person, or this person is okay to go, honestly, like go like a quick day trip to go soak like in some hot
Yeah.
springs or something. And that's cool. And we can do that, but it's further and fewer between. But when it happens, it's really fun. So I
Yeah.
think, like, I'm just wondering what experiences people have, like, as you move into your adult life and you're moving beyond like those primal relationships, like Sua, that's one of your primary relationships with your parents that I think will always like try to circle back to. That I know I do that with my mom, especially. And that's just like a continual process of work, I think, like, especially when you may have a challenging relationship with a parent. Um, but when it comes to new relationships and establishing them, I'm kind of wondering from you, Chris, as how are you doing that? Or, I want to know, like, what does that look like for you? Or did you just abandon it and you're like, look, I just work and I find the people I find and that's it?
Uh, it gets a little tricky in kind of my circumstance because I work from home. My gym is in my garage, so I don't have to commute anywhere. I there have been days where I stay in my house and don't see another living human being for days. Me being a bit of a introvert and hermit, I don't even notice that. Like, I'm okay with that. Um, so having said that, I knew when I got out of the army, I was walking away from my tribe, and I needed to have some kind of replacement. Not that I could ever replace those kinds of guys, but I needed to replace the community aspect in some capacity. And probably 6 months after I got out, I joined a jujitsu gym, and that was a game changer because one, it's like-minded individuals of all different backgrounds, and like-minded in that we want to better ourselves in this kind of form. And I met some really, really close friends. I met some really cool people that became close friends in that capacity. But that like first day stepping onto the mat, I I won't lie, my ego was affected in this moment, but I was like, I'm a Green Beret. I can handle whatever they throw at me. And like my first or second day on the mat, I was sparring with this 16-year-old kid, and he folded me like a pretzel. And I was like, oh, okay, there's more to this than I thought, which was great for a humbling experience for my ego. But it opened me up to like, hey, Chris, allow yourself to be vulnerable in this capacity, which then I think fostered the relationships that I found there. So that's a really long-winded way to say join clubs or go out and and find people that like doing the things you do. It's hard making friends as an adult, new friends, with the exception of like work, like in school, it's easy because you're around those people all the time, all day, every day. And so you're like friends by proximity, and it's kind of thrust upon you. You can kind of develop similar relationships in career and work life. Um, but if you are working from home or working remotely, that gets tricky. And so again, my recommendation is figure out what you really like to do. Maybe that's hiking or doing the incline, or whatever. Maybe it's book clubs. I think you and I've talked. You're part of a book club, um, and finding what you like, and then seeking out those groups to see if there is a connection there. See if I can unmute you. Oh, no, I can't.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just having a conversation actually last night about this, about, and maybe just changing the tack. I mean, you know, I have lots of different interests, and like last summer I was taking flamenco classes up in Denver. That was super fun. So that's the part where it's not the connection part, that initial connection part. It's like I think that it just needs to be like at this point, what am I super passionate about? And then finding other people that just have that passion to carry it forward. And it doesn't have to match. Like you were
Right.
saying, it echoes what you're saying. It's just like a pursuit of excellence. But it is further and fewer between than I'd
Sure.
probably love all the time. I mean, I'm fine, but it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
I think right now I'm just like super eager just to find that here in the community, because I moved to Colorado Springs in 2020. So it was still definitely like pandemic time. Like the vaccines weren't even out yet. There was no movement. So it took a minute to even just gain traction in community, to find the coffee shop when I walk in. They're like, "Hey, Diana." I'm like, "How you doing?" Like I enjoy that in my life. So yeah, but I really love the idea of tribe, and definitely hear you very clearly on like those kind of circles of like that really deep inner circle where you are paying attention to those like micro expressions,
Yeah.
like Lee was saying, or that response or lack thereof
Right.
to what's going on in your life. And um I recently read a book about feedback, and because we are in a constant state of feedback, and just getting that feedback from other people, or other, just in our situation in general, any situation, the sun is feedback. It's telling us it's daylight, so yeah, so I just really appreciate this clarification, because like Eric was saying, just going back through the notes and really like taking time to work through it and fine tune it, I think, is because it's easy to take all of this information in and just be like, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll just vet people in my life. But like to really go through those notes and journal every morning and really start to tease it out and fine tune it,
Yeah.
and to get really settled inside of it, so that when it is time to be actionable, it's so intentional and sort of second nature. Like, yeah, this is where I'm coming from. But it's that vulnerability piece that we were talking about too, Sua. That's hard. That's hard. It's difficult for me, so I want to acknowledge you for your courage to share, because I think it's beautiful and it's helpful. It sheds light on the challenge and beauty of life.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well
well,
said.
thank you for listening. Yeah.
Awesome.
God,
um, just so you guys are tracking, I'll be once I render and make look nice these webinars, I'll be posting them in the classroom. So if there ever is a time that you want to go back and review one of the lessons, you'll have an opportunity to. I can also send you the links to them as well, just so you have them on your personal device. I do want to be respectful of your time. We've kind of busted over the hour, but I'm grateful that you all joined me today. It means a lot to me. If you guys ever need anything from me, shoot me a message. I'd be happy to reach out and chat with you. If you want to book a call, don't hesitate. Just if you need my link, just let me know and I'll get it to you and we'll hop on a call. But other than that, thank you again for being here, for spending a couple days with me. It was tons of fun, and hopefully you got some value out of it. All right, my friends, we'll catch you next time.
Awesome. Thanks.
We'll see you.
Thank you.